Hey, Ray here. Back at it again with another Edison Spotlight. Today we're looking at yet another degenerate deck. However, instead of Exodia FTK, this time we're looking at another alternative win condition in the form of Final Countdown. Now, for those of you who are lucky enough to not know what Final Countdown does, this card reads, pay 2,000 life points. After 20 turns have passed after you activate this card, counting the turn you activate this as the first turn, you win the duel. I think that card alone should kind of explain what this deck does. You essentially sit on a lot of stall cards and just try to make your opponent sit there and wait for 20 turns until you win. Is this a bit of a boring and unfun way to play? For some people, yes. However, I and many others really enjoy this kind of really slow, grindy, stall type gameplay. But just know that a lot of people do not like playing against these decks and they will despise you. I find people generally fall into one of two camps, where they love the challenge that playing against a stall deck offers, where you have to manage your resources really carefully and use whatever board wipes you can in order to try and, counter the strategy. Or there are people who get sick of the fact that they can't do anything and then they give up, which is rather understandable. Now, that being said, let's look into the many stall cards we play. Arcana Force Zero the Fool. This can be replaced with any monster that reads cannot be destroyed by battle, so you could put Golem Duo here for all it matters. This is just here to act as a secondary stall method. If they don't have pierces or ways to out a monster that cannot be destroyed by battle, this works really well. Battle Fader. You generally want to hold on to these for when all of your other resources are exhausted, because your opponent could use something like a Judgment Dragon and nuke the field, but so long as you have a Battle Fader in hand, they still might not be able to get through at you. Cyber Valley is great, it ends the battle phase and it draws you a card, and if you have monsters that are just sitting on the field doing nothing, you can even banish them to draw two cards, which is nice. Gauze is here again to almost act as like a fourth Battle Fader against OTK decks that can wipe the field. Lava Golem almost acts as a secondary win condition. I find if you aren't really drawing into your final countdowns, or you don't think you might even make it through those turns, Lava Golem puts an 8-turn clock on them. So long as you can stall for 8 turns, you win the game, unless they out their own Lava Golem. Either way, it presents a threat to your opponent, and it can also get rid of threats that they have that might be getting in the way of you winning. For example, like a Judgment Dragon. Again, it's the perfect example because it's the kind of card specifically these decks hit. Marshmallow can't be destroyed by battle. Morphing Jar just gives you a ton of advantage once you have a lot of set back row. Sangan can search Battle Fader in a pinch and can literally save your life. Spirit Reaper can't be destroyed by battle. You play Gold Sarcophagus to go fetch your final countdowns if you're not drawing into them. Level Limit Area B is just another stall card. It basically means your opponent cannot attack. Messenger of Peace, this one's kind of questionable. A lot of people would prefer to probably run another Threatening Roar, another Wabaku, or maybe Thundering Ruler in this spot. Swords of Revealing Light stalls for 3 turns. We run 3 Upstart Goblins, so we draw into our final countdowns as consistently as possible because it's our win condition. Gravity Bind is just another stall card. Again, most of these cards can be replaced with other ones. It's decks like this. It's a game of what stall cards do you prefer? Do you prefer Wabaku and Threatening Roar and Thunder of Ruler, which they guarantee your opponent cannot attack this turn, because even if they Heavy Storm you or something, you still get to obviously get that to go through. And if you're running the type of builds that run a lot of those back row, you can also run a little card called Wormlinks. Now, what Wormlinks says, flip. During each end phase, if this card is face up, draw 1 card. I don't get why that's a flip effect, to be honest, but what this essentially works as is... think of it as kind of a Deslakuda with... oh gosh, I should probably pull up Deslakuda for those of you who don't know what that is. Deslakuda being a monster that lets you repeatedly flip it up and down to draw cards. Now, Wormlinks works best in decks where you can guarantee that it will survive every turn, so you get the 1-for-1 with cards like Threatening Roar and Wabaku. But again, ultimately, all of these decks are just variants of stall. It's just what flavor of stall you like the best. I like running triple Reckless Greed because it can win you games. When your opponent's going for a push, and they'll usually, dictate that by just slamming down the Heavy Storm, assuming you don't have Starlight Road, you can just flip up your Reckless Greed, hope you draw into a Battle Fader or a Gauze, and then go from there. Starlight Road is essential. You want your stall cards like Messenger of Peace and Level Limit to stick around, and Starlight Road really helps you do that. It also stops Black Rose, which is another card that this deck hates. Threatening Roar and Waboku are just, again, generic stall cards. There's only so many ways I could say it. Like, of the 40 cards in this deck, the majority is to stall. I'm sorry if that's boring, guys, but that's how this deck works. Now, in terms of side deck, I've chose to put nothing here because there's different philosophies. Again, with these decks, there's so many different ways you can go about it. Some people like to side into Burn in the side deck, because if they find that Burn would probably be a better matchup, they'll completely switch strategies, which, that works. A lot of the cards played in here are also played in Burn decks. Some people can choose to completely switch into another degenerate strategy, like Owner's Seal combo. And some people just choose to side cards that would specifically screw over their opponent the most, like cards like Necro Valley. And you can even put a whole Secret Village of the Spellcaster's Core in the side deck if you would like, with 3 Gravekeeper's Spy and 3 Gravekeeper's Guard. But ultimately, it's up to you. That's the fun thing about stall. There's so many ways to do it. You can even run, I believe, Zero Gardener has been printed at this point. I might be wrong, because I haven't checked on that one. But yeah, that's the deck profile. Now, let's do some test hands. They're probably not going to be very interesting. I'm mainly just demonstrating how often you either draw Final Countdown or a way to get to it. Alright, so for test hands... Oh no, we haven't drawn Final Countdown. Sorry, I'm sure it's somewhere in here. Alright, so Upstart, draw a card. Oh, that's not good. Well, I'd say turn 1. Just set the Fool. They're almost certainly not going to be able to out the Fool turn 1. So we get to turn 2. I wonder, how deep is it? There you go. If you can't get to, if you can't dig for Final Countdown itself, you're generally going to want a Gold Sarcophagus for it. Now, this immediately tells your opponent what you're playing, but they've probably figured that out by the stall cards anyway, so I wouldn't say that's a big deal. Now, here's the thing. Because of Gold Sarcophagus, we can essentially run 5 copies of it. Because we run 3 Upstart and 3 Reckless, we are very likely to see it, however. And because I said that, we're not going to see it at all. Alright, see... Oh, wow, 2 Upstart. Let's draw 2 cards. Hopefully one of them's... Wow, okay. We are not getting lucky here. But yeah, this hand's very workable with. There you go. We drew it. That's nice. Yeah, this deck isn't very interesting. The best advice I can give is play conservatively. You never know when your opponent's going to have an out, so make sure you leave plenty of outs in your hand for when things go south. Because one thing a lot of players playing decks like this will get is they will get very cocky, which will inevitably lead to them losing, and they'll wonder why, and then they'll drop the deck and never play it again. It's like, no, you can play these decks, you just need to know how to. Ooh, Gold Sock in the opening hand, that's what we like to see. Then you banish it. See, a lot of people are like, oh man, you gotta wait 2 turns for Gold Sock, that's bad. I mean, in a deck built around nothing but stalling. Waiting 2 turns for your win condition? Oh my god, not to hand, banish it. That's honestly not too bad. I mean, Level Limit Area B and Starlight Road is nice, but if they have MST, they're kinda screwed. Yeah. Like I said, playtesting this deck can only really be done against another person, and there aren't going to be many people who are going to want to playtest this against you. Oh hey look, we hard drew Final Countdown. We win. I think there's about a 1 in 3 chance of you opening Countdown because of we're basically running a 37 card deck, and we are running 5 copies of it if you got the Gold Socks as them, which I do because 90% of the time when I activate Gold Sock, it's to go search for a Final Countdown. So in terms of consistency, this deck is pretty good at doing what it does. Because you can afford to run a lot of the slower draw cards in this deck. Like, again, that's why we run 3 Reckless. Because, like, we don't always care about drawing quick. Oh, opening Morphing Jar and 4 back row? That's kind of ideal, yeah. Sometimes you will just lock your opponent in a situation where they don't necessarily have a main deck out, at which point they will just scoop. Oh my god, we don't want to draw 2 Final Countdown. But yeah, there's honestly not a lot I can say about this deck other than if you really want to play this, I'd recommend playtesting it quite a lot and find what variant you enjoy the most. Some people enjoy building it with quite a few alternative win conditions built in, like a couple burn cards, like stuff like Wave Motion Cannon. I wouldn't recommend that. I personally think that this build is fine. If you want to run Thunder of Ruler instead of Messenger of Peace, like, go ahead. Again, decks like this, it's all personal preference because ultimately, no matter how you build it, it is going to achieve the same goal. You are going to stall for a bunch and either win the game or lose the game very slowly. Now, the funny thing is, against more impatient players, they will sometimes quit even if they might genuinely have a chance of winning, just because a lot of players just don't want to deal with this. Is that moral? Now, I'll leave that one up to you, but, you know, I just thought that needs to be said. But yeah, that was Final Countdown Stall. Hope you guys have a good one, and don't use this information to hurt anyone you love.